How's it going, everyone? This is Tom of RedmanPie.com. Today I have a comparison for you between the iPad mini with Retina display, only released last week, and the Nexus 7 second generation, the 2013 iteration of Google's stock Android tablet. We're going to be taking a look at the performance and of course the physical aspects of the device. Let's just jump straight in. The Nexus 7 second generation is less imposing than the iPad mini. It has a 7-inch display of a resolution of 1920 by 1200. That results in a pixel density of 323 pixels per inch. This is a device most likely suited for one-handed usage in a portrait orientation, as you can see right here. Just in landscape, it kind of just feels a little bit weird, kind of like you're using a very big smartphone in landscape orientation all the time. Onto the iPad mini now. This has a resolution of 2048 by 1536. It's on a 7.9-inch screen, so a bigger form factor than the Nexus 7 second generation, which means it has a pixel density of 326 pixels per inch. Both of these displays, though, are fantastic, and you're pretty much not going to be able to tell the difference in quality between the two. And whilst the Nexus 7 is best used in portrait orientation, the iPad mini doesn't really have an orientation which it's specialized for or feels better using. Both are very natural with this tablet. In terms of thickness, the iPad mini comes out on top. Apple's tablet comes in at just 7.5mm, whereas Google's is 8.65mm. But again, in real world usage, that difference really isn't that much, and unless you've got them side by side, you'll barely even notice it. Also, in terms of build, both of these tablets are built very well. They have very good build quality, though the iPad mini's second generation is built out of mainly glass and aluminium, with the Nexus 7 being built out of plastic, so that of course affects the feel of the device, and the iPad mini second generation does feel more premium. Let's go ahead and run a few benchmarks here. So we have Geekbench 3 open. Just bear in mind that benchmarks aren't everything, but they do give you quite a good representation of the general performance of your device, and that's what Geekbench 3 is good for. It kind of gives you an overall system score about how well your device should be performing. I've just cut forward here to when the benchmarks actually finish. So on the iPad mini, we come up with a single core performance of 1393 and a multi-core performance of 2525. On the Nexus 7 second generation, a single core performance of 583 and a multi-core performance of 1866. And judging by that score, the iPad mini is quicker on paper. Next up, we'll test the web browsing performance. This is using SunSpider benchmark. It's essentially a JavaScript rendering benchmark. It tests how well general web performance is going to be on your specific device. So interestingly, the Nexus 7 was very quick to initiate the test, but then the iPad mini with Retina display kind of quickly tore ahead and is much quicker to complete the benchmark. SunSpider gives you a time it took to complete the benchmark, so obviously the lower score here is better. As you can see, the iPad mini 2, or the iPad mini with Retina display, whatever you'd like to call it, pretty much just tore through this one. It's finished when the Nexus 7 is nowhere near finishing with time to spare, and scored 398 milliseconds to complete this benchmark, whereas the Nexus 7 second generation, the Nexus 7 2013, took 1081 milliseconds to complete this benchmark. So again, a blistering performance by the iPad mini 2. So let's move on to some actual browser tests here. We're going to load up RedmanPie.com. So interestingly, the iPad mini 2 actually loaded the page quicker, but there's still some kind of background loading going on, but both pages are kind of interactionable. That makes no sense. You're basically able to interact with the page no problem, but there are just some background things loading. Let's try something a little bit different. We're going to load up richwiz.com. This is my personal website, and I've actually got a mobile version which the iPad mini shouldn't pick up, but the Nexus 7 does, so it'll be a good test and see how that affects the load time. Load times were pretty similar, and as you can see, there is a different page structure from the Nexus 7 to the iPad mini. Finally, let's load nytimes.com, the New York Times. Very content-heavy site, so it'll be interesting to see which one does load first here. And the iPad mini with Retina display is very, very much quicker here. As you can see, it loads the page substantially quicker than the Nexus 7 second generation. We're going to finish up here with a boot test and a gaming comparison between these two tablets. I pressed the buttons, the power buttons, at exactly the same time. The iPad mini is first to kind of show its splash screen, its loading screen, but I'd imagine the boot up process started at a relatively similar time. Obviously, the Nexus logo on the right and then the Apple logo on the left, and you'll see that the iPad mini boots up in around 21 seconds, and then the Nexus 7 second generation is a little bit slower. You're able to interact with the iPad mini faster, but the Nexus 7 boots up in around 28 seconds from start to finish. So after watching this entire comparison video, I wonder if you can guess what the gaming performance is like on both of these tablets. If you said flawless, you'd probably be right. The iPad mini second generation, or the iPad mini with Retina display, tears through Riptide GP. This is one of the most intensive cross-platform games available for both of these devices. Lots of 3D rendering and kind of high frame rates going on, and both of these tablets, as you'd expect, just tear through this game with no problem whatsoever. You're not going to find any drop frames, any lag, and both of them look absolutely gorgeous. In fact, if you were looking into gaming on these tablets and kind of that was your main thing that you wanted to do with this device, I'd look into which screen size you prefer more than anything, because the performance that they bring on both of these tablets is just fantastic. Well guys, that pretty much wraps this one up. I'm going to leave the verdict of this video up to you, to be honest, because the main difference between these is the operating systems that they're running. So definitely let me know which tablet you'd prefer down in the comments down below. If you have enjoyed or found this comparison helpful, definitely give it a like. It really helps out the Redmond Pie channel. Subscribe if you haven't done already. We're bringing you lots of videos just like this one, and we'll catch you next time.